Something profound is unfolding beneath the silence, even if nothing obvious has changed on the outside. If you have been sensing it recently, trust that feeling. It is not simply wishful thinking. Deep within them, a life-changing decision is slowly taking form, and whether they admit it or not, you are at the center of it. From the outside, they may appear composed, emotionally unavailable, or completely unaffected. Yet beneath that calm exterior, a truth they spent a long time avoiding has become impossible to silence. This is about far more than simply missing you. It is about the part of themselves that your connection awakened, forcing them to face emotions and realities they were never prepared to confront. If this message resonates with what you have been feeling, leave a like and let me know you are here. Right now, they are standing at one of the most important crossroads of their life, and no matter which direction they consider, every path seems to lead their thoughts back to you. For a long time, they convinced themselves that staying busy would make everything disappear. They buried themselves in work, routines, distractions, pride, and emotional distance, believing that enough silence would eventually erase what they felt. But not every bond fades with time. Some connections refuse to disappear because they leave questions that never found answers. The harder they tried to suppress those emotions, the stronger they became within their own heart. Now they find themselves questioning the story they repeated to themselves for so long. Comment shifting if you have been sensing this quiet transformation happening within them. Inside them, two powerful forces are pulling in opposite directions. One side feels an undeniable pull toward you, one that cannot easily be explained or ignored. The other side desperately resists because accepting those feelings means letting go of old emotional defenses that once made them feel protected. It requires a level of honesty they have avoided for years. They now find themselves sitting alone with thoughts they cannot escape, wondering why memories of you continue to return during life's quiet moments, and why no one else has ever filled the space you left behind. They have reached that difficult point where resistance begins to collapse, where pretending becomes more exhausting than facing the truth. If they eventually come back, it will not be because they suddenly became lonely. It will be because they finally understand that a connection like this is incredibly rare and cannot simply be replaced. And if they choose another path instead, never mistake that decision as proof that you were not enough. It would only mean they were unable to embrace the honesty, vulnerability, and personal growth that loving you demanded from them. Type yes if you want to discover what their silence is truly saying, and whether fear or truth ultimately shapes their next step. Your responsibility now is not to chase them, convince them, or force an outcome. Allow life to unfold naturally. Let time reveal what emotions could never fully express. Some truths only become visible when enough time has passed for the heart to stop fighting itself. What is happening within them carries tremendous emotional weight. This is not a temporary phase or a passing uncertainty. It is an ongoing inner battle that grows stronger with each passing day. On one side lives the warmth of your connection, filled with memories, comfort, longing, and a feeling of belonging unlike anything they have experienced before. On the other side stands an old protective voice, shaped by disappointment, heartbreak, and fear. It urges them to stay guarded, keep their distance, and avoid taking emotional risks, no matter how deeply they feel. These opposing forces continue to collide within them, making it harder to maintain the emotional balance they once believed they had. They may continue following their normal routines. They may throw themselves into responsibilities, surround themselves with distractions, or pretend everything has moved on. They may even convince others that none of this matters anymore. Yet the deeper they bury these emotions, the more powerfully they return, because the real conflict has never existed in the outside world. It has always been taking place inside their own heart and mind. That is exactly why the decision before them carries so much significance. Without either of you fully realizing it, you became a turning point in their life. Your connection challenged emotional walls they had spent years building for survival. It reached the part of them hidden beneath control, appearances, and every carefully constructed defense they depended on. Now they are standing before a choice they can no longer postpone. They can remain the person they have always been, protected but emotionally confined. Or they can step into a completely different version of themselves. That path asks for courage, openness, vulnerability, and emotional trust. Qualities that feel unfamiliar but necessary. This ongoing struggle explains the inconsistency you have witnessed. It appears through the push and pull, the moments of closeness followed by sudden distance, the times when they seem ready to move forward, only to retreat again. It is not always manipulation or mind games. Sometimes it is simply what happens when someone deeply wants a connection, but fears the transformation that genuine love inevitably demands. As this inner pressure continues to build, it slowly strips away the illusions they once believed were protecting them, leaving only one question behind. Will they continue hiding from the truth? Or will they finally find the courage to embrace it? They have reached a point where they can no longer tell themselves that you were simply a temporary chapter in their life. That explanation no longer satisfies what they are feeling inside. Little by little, they are being guided towards seeing your place in their story with far greater clarity. At the same time, they are beginning to look at themselves through a completely different lens. Memories they believed had faded are returning with unexpected strength. Emotions they thought were buried are rising again, carrying even more weight than before. If you feel they are standing at a life-changing crossroads because of this connection, comment "crossroads" below. Silence no longer feels empty to them. Every moment without you carries a deeper emotional weight than it once did. This discomfort is not meaningless. It is part of the process. Real decisions are rarely made while someone is running from their emotions. They are born when confusion begins to settle and the heart grows tired of hiding behind fear. That quiet transformation is already taking place, even if nothing appears different on the surface. Eventually, every person reaches a point where uncertainty becomes more exhausting than the truth itself. They are slowly approaching that moment. It is not because the outside world suddenly changed. It is because no one can remain emotionally divided forever. For a long time, they tried to shrink their feelings until they seemed manageable. They convinced themselves it was nothing important, that time would erase it, and that no action was necessary. But something much deeper within them has stopped accepting that explanation. That growing awareness is pulling every hidden emotion back into the light. Feelings this genuine rarely disappear on their own. Instead, they continue growing in silence. They evolve during separation and become stronger in the absence of answers. Eventually, they demand to be acknowledged. Now those emotions arrive unexpectedly. They surface during sleepless nights, in quiet pauses between responsibilities, and in memories they never imagined would return so vividly. After the distractions fade and the day becomes still, they notice their thoughts naturally drifting back to you again and again. Your presence has become like a quiet echo that follows them through ordinary moments. No matter how busy they become, something inside continues reminding them that an important piece of their life still feels incomplete. Your absence has quietly transformed everything. By stepping away, you unknowingly gave them the one thing they could not escape: their own thoughts. That silence became a mirror. It forced them to recognize the comfort they lost, the warmth they once felt, and the emotional peace your presence brought into their life. Once they truly experienced that emptiness, they stopped wondering whether you mattered and began realizing how rare your connection actually was. If this message reflects what you have been sensing all along, share this video with someone who may need to hear these words today. Within them, two powerful forces are now clashing. One is a deep, instinctive desire pulling them back toward you. The other is an old, protective fear that still whispers about losing control, risking vulnerability, and reopening wounds that never fully healed. But something has changed. For the first time, their longing is becoming louder than their defenses, creating an emotional storm they can no longer ignore. They remain trapped in hesitation, not because their feelings are weak, but because they are living through an intense internal conflict that is pushing them closer to a breakthrough. This has grown beyond the question of a relationship. It has become a defining moment in discovering who they truly want to be. If they seem distant, restless, or emotionally unsettled right now, do not assume it means everything is over. They are beginning to realize that existing in the middle, never fully leaving, yet never fully returning, has robbed them of their inner peace. They are finally being asked to take responsibility for what their heart has been trying to tell them all along. It means letting go of the safety of the person they used to be in exchange for a connection that asks them to grow. Comment pull if you can feel that invisible force drawing them back toward you, even through the silence. The hesitation they once depended on as protection has slowly become a prison. The emotional walls they trusted for years are beginning to crack beneath the weight of truths they can no longer avoid. They keep remembering the conversations they never had, the words they held back, and the moments when pride spoke louder than honesty ever did. The distance between what they feel and what they actually do is becoming smaller every day. Real change is no longer just possible, it is becoming unavoidable. When someone spends enough time alone with their own thoughts, the noise of everyday life eventually fades, allowing truth to rise to the surface. That is exactly what is happening inside them now. No one is forcing this realization upon them. It is coming entirely from within, becoming stronger with each passing day. They can no longer hide behind uncertainty the way they once did. Type awakening if these words describe exactly what you believe they are experiencing. This connection now appears most clearly during their quietest moments. It returns when everything around them slows down. It reappears when they try focusing on other parts of life. Every return reshapes how they understand your story together. What once seemed like isolated memories now feels connected by purpose. What once felt confusing is beginning to make perfect sense. They are realizing they were never only missing a person. They were missing the version of themselves that existed when they were with you. The version that felt more genuine, more emotionally open, and more alive than they had been in years. Living without that part of themselves has become increasingly painful, and ignoring that truth is no longer possible. This is the turning point they can no longer avoid. Because when someone begins longing for the person they became through loving you, the question is no longer whether the connection mattered. The only question left is what they will choose to do with that truth. The question is no longer whether this connection mattered. The real question now is whether they are willing to return to the truth it uncovered within them. As this realization grows stronger, the outside world slowly loses its ability to distract them. They can fill every hour with work, responsibilities, conversations, and endless activity. They can surround themselves with people and convince everyone around them that life is moving forward as usual. Yet beneath all of that movement, one quiet current continues pulling them in the same direction, back to you, back to the emotions they experienced, and back to the unfinished story that still lives between you. This is the point where the protective ego slowly begins to lose its influence. The ego always chooses distance because distance feels safe. It clings to control because control feels predictable. But something much deeper inside them is beginning to recognize another truth, that complete emotional separation carries its own kind of loneliness. Sometimes the emptiness of staying disconnected becomes even more painful than the vulnerability they have spent so long trying to avoid. Now they find themselves carefully weighing two very different futures. One offers familiarity, certainty, and emotional safety, yet leaves an undeniable emptiness behind. The other is uncertain and requires courage, but it also holds the possibility of something authentic, fulfilling, and deeply meaningful. For perhaps the first time, what they could gain is beginning to feel more valuable than what they have been trying to protect. That is the moment courage quietly begins to appear. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the moment truth becomes more powerful than fear itself. With that shift comes a different kind of peace. The pressure has not disappeared, but it no longer feels chaotic. It has become calmer, clearer, and far more honest. Instead of pushing every emotion away, they are beginning to listen to what those feelings have been trying to tell them all along. Slowly, they are accepting that what lives inside their heart is real. That acceptance creates a quiet sense of relief. Not because every question has already been answered, but because the battle within them is slowly transforming into understanding. The confusion that once consumed them is beginning to give way to certainty. They now stand between two versions of their life. Behind them is the familiar person they have always been. Ahead of them is someone they have not yet fully become. The only thing connecting those two versions is one honest decision that cannot be postponed forever. This is where genuine self-reflection begins. The silence they once used as protection has become a mirror. Instead of hiding them, it now reveals them. It shows where pride replaced vulnerability, where fear silenced honesty, and where avoidance created distance that never truly needed to exist. They find themselves replaying old conversations, forgotten moments, meaningful glances, and the quiet pauses that once seemed insignificant. But now they see those memories through wiser eyes. With greater emotional maturity, they recognize where fear made choices that love never would have made. At the same time, they are beginning to appreciate the beautiful connection that was quietly trying to grow between the two of you before fear interrupted the process. This is no longer simply about regret or wishing the past had unfolded differently. It is about completely redefining what deserves the highest place in their life. The things they once believed mattered most, control, appearances, emotional protection, certainty, and always feeling safe, are beginning to lose their importance. Compared to the depth of something genuine, those old priorities suddenly feel surprisingly empty. Another transformation is taking place within them as well. Empathy is slowly expanding inside their heart. For the first time, they are beginning to understand what their emotional distance may have felt like from your perspective. They are recognizing the weight you silently carried while they remained uncertain and emotionally guarded. That realization changes a person in quiet but lasting ways. It softens their heart. It humbles their perspective. It becomes much harder to hide behind emotional detachment once they fully accept the impact their choices had. The moment responsibility enters the picture, everything begins shifting in a more meaningful direction. They are no longer reacting only from fear or instinct. They are slowly becoming the one consciously choosing what comes next. And when someone reaches this stage of awareness, everything becomes more significant. Not louder, not more dramatic, simply more intentional. Because they now understand that the decision they make next will reveal the kind of person they truly want to become. The final layers of hesitation are beginning to fall away little by little. The endless cycle of maybe, what if, and not yet is losing its influence. In its place, something far stronger is quietly taking root. Comment heavy if the energy surrounding this connection has felt unusually intense lately. A quiet inner certainty is beginning to replace uncertainty, a feeling that no longer whispers someday, but gently insists that the time to face the truth has finally arrived. The time has come where they can no longer keep avoiding what their heart already knows. They have reached a place where acknowledging this connection is no longer optional. They must face what is real between the two of you. They must accept the emotions they have been trying to outrun, and they can no longer remain trapped in the cycle of hesitation that has kept them emotionally frozen for so long. Time itself feels different to them now. It no longer seems endless or forgiving. Every passing day reminds them that remaining stuck is still a decision, and often the one that brings the greatest regret. They are beginning to understand that waiting forever is simply another way of choosing inaction, and the emotional cost of that choice has become impossible to ignore. This realization is no longer living only in their thoughts. They feel it physically. It appears as a quiet pressure in their chest whenever they imagine reaching out, speaking honestly, or finally taking a meaningful step forward. The unknown still carries uncertainty, but something has shifted. The emptiness created by staying disconnected has started to feel even more frightening than the vulnerability they once feared. That is why change is moving closer with every passing day. The words they once swallowed are slowly finding their way back to the surface. The actions that once felt impossible are becoming increasingly difficult to avoid. When the truth grows strong enough inside someone, silence no longer feels like protection. Instead, it begins to feel like a burden they can no longer carry. Remember one important thing: whatever they choose to do next will not come from impulse or temporary emotion. It will be the result of a long, quiet journey of confronting themselves honestly, without excuses, denial, or emotional hiding. Every difficult moment they have experienced has been leading them toward this point. That is why this stage carries so much significance. This is not a passing emotion that will disappear with time. It is a deep, inner reckoning that transforms a person from the inside out. At first, those changes happen so quietly they are almost invisible. Then, one day, everything finally comes together, and the truth can no longer be ignored. At the center of this entire process stands one undeniable reality. You changed something within them that cannot simply be undone. You reflected back a version of themselves they had forgotten existed. You became more than someone they cared about. You became a mirror that revealed their hidden potential, a catalyst for growth, and a source of stability during a period when they felt disconnected from themselves. Even after the silence began, your influence never truly left their heart. That is why their awareness is becoming deeper than it has ever been before. The mental noise that once kept them distracted is beginning to fade. The path ahead no longer feels as confusing as it once did. They are no longer asking themselves whether this connection mattered. The only question that remains is how much longer they can ignore what they already know they need to do. Piece by piece, the confusion that once clouded their judgment is disappearing. In its place is a quiet certainty that feels grounded, steady, and impossible to dismiss. They now understand that trying to control their emotions never weakened them. It only allowed those feelings to grow stronger beneath the surface. Pretending not to know the truth is no longer something they can continue doing. If you have been sensing this quiet transformation, trust what your intuition has been telling you. Something meaningful is approaching its final stage within their heart. Life is placing them before a choice that asks one simple question. Will they continue living from fear, or will they finally choose truth? Your role during this chapter is surprisingly simple. Stay grounded. Remain patient. Resist the temptation to chase something that is already making its way into the light. Allow them to experience the full weight of your absence. Let them discover the true value of your presence without you having to convince them. Let them feel what it costs to keep pretending their emotions are smaller than they really are. The person who once lived in constant hesitation is approaching a point where going back and forth will no longer be possible. A decision is coming, and this time it will carry far more honesty than anything that came before. If this message speaks to your heart, leave a like, comment which part resonated with you most, and subscribe to Dark Psyche for more insights into the hidden emotional journey unfolding beneath the surface. Their inner conflict is no longer growing. It is gradually transforming into certainty, purpose, and direction. Soon, one simple truth will rise above every excuse, every fear, and every reason they once used to stay hidden. It will reveal not only how deeply this connection changed them, but also the kind of person they choose to become when life finally asks for courage instead of comfort. And when that moment finally arrives, they will understand that the long silence before the truth was never empty. It was the very process that prepared them to face it. If these words reflect what you have been feeling all along, hold on to that quiet sense of hope. Trust the timing of everything that is unfolding, because the next chapter of this connection is closer than either of you may realize.